Hello and welcome to Inside the Mind of, a podcast where I dive deeper into the minds of some of my favorite people and people who inspire me in the wrestling community. Joining me today, I'm now dubbing her Miss Fightful.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. She does so many things, but I did narrow down a few that she does do. Sour Graps, I did have to specify right before, but we got that figured out. She does the SmackDown and ROH post shows. She's also part of the Mark Order podcast and does commentary for Excite Wrestling. I am, of course, talking about Miss Kate. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. And God bless you for being able to keep any part of my schedule right. Because I think you know what shows I'm doing more than I do. I appreciate it.
Hey, well, when people put it in their bios, it really helps.
I try to. I've run out of characters there. I'm very, very knock on wood, blessed to be doing this most nights a week. But yeah, I always like I'm running out of characters over here. I can't even put anything cutesy in there anymore, which is a champagne problem to have. I'll take it.
As I say, it's definitely a good problem to be having. I mean, like I said, you do so much. It's crazy.
It is pretty crazy, and it was everything I was like planning on doing. So the fact that it kind of ramped up to the degree that it is something that, in the most amazing way, has caught me very off guard in my life, and especially like I'm in my mid-30s. I was never planning on doing this, and I'm a year and a half. I'm almost 2 years at Fightful, so I've only been doing this about 3 years. You've been doing this about 3 years, you said right before we got on air too. So yeah, it's been a very cool and wild and unexpected little turn in my life. I'll take it.
Hey, and you know what? You just made my job a whole lot easier. So, first question I was going to ask you, you should say you started about 3 years ago. So, how exactly did you get your start in podcasting with Fightful? How did that all kind of come about?
So it's funny. I only have been podcasting for about 3 years, but when I was in my teens, I really wanted to go into sports broadcasting. I was like, wanted to be the New York Yankees play-by-play commentator so bad. And then when I got into college, I was kind of exploring different communications paths, and I found that like I just connected much more with the public relations side of things. But I was a part of our college radio station at Seton Hall University, WSOU. I'll always put them over whenever I can, because top 10 college radio station, consistently Marconi award winning. Got a lot of opportunities through there to work at Sirius XM and a lot of other places from an internship perspective, and loved radio the whole time, and always had an interest in it. And then I think the first kind of wrestling podcasting I did was I met a couple of friends that run a podcast called The Shining Wizards, and I met them at the G1 Supercard at Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
And they became quick friends, and whenever they needed someone to sub in, they kind of called on me. And then during COVID, they decided to start doing an AEW show as like bonus content to their Monday night show, which is now what kind of has spun off into the Mark Order podcast. But it was mostly just like an activity during COVID to keep us all from going insane. Like, I feel like a lot of people, those Blue Yetis were probably selling out because everybody was starting podcasts at the same time. And I loved it. And I got very into, I loved having a WWE alternative on. And I was just by nature, I'm someone that with any art form, I tend to go and seek out a lot of it. Like, I don't always assume my favorite stuff is going to be what's on TV right now. So I went back and was watching mid-80s NWA and New Japan and all these places that I kind of haven't explored yet. The deeper I got into it, just the more in love I fell with wrestling. And then as far as Fightful goes, it was kind of funny. I just started watching a lot of their content just from the outside. I just really loved the post shows. I loved getting different people's perspectives. I still try and seek out as many as I can. And then it kind of started on the sillier side. Jeremy Lambert, who's the director of content over there and just the most wonderful, silly guy. They were doing some like kind of offbeat stuff on Twitch, like just playing marbles. And I'm a big shit talker, so I was talking all this shit to him. And like marbles on Twitch is literally an automated game. It requires no strategy or skill. And I was like talking about how all these things I was gonna do, and like just kind of started establishing relationships with people that way. And then Sean had a prediction show for that year's Money in the Bank and Impact Slammiversary, and
Okay.
I always say that was like a dark match. I didn't know I was kind of sort of auditioning for it, but Sean liked our chemistry. And then I took over the SmackDown post show, which quickly turned into the SmackDown and AEW Rampage post show when that started. Because that all kind of launched around the same time that I was coming in, and I got asked to come on that. And then Alex, who you alluded to, Sour Graps, kind of saw what my chemistry looked like on screen, and he was doing it solo. I don't know how you can do a wrestling show solo. He kind of, I always say he was like our Lewis Black for a little bit. Like he had all this energy, but sour graps we call it. Like it's highly critical, but I loved his wrestling mind, and I still do. Like unbelievable fantasy booking, and he's an actor, so he just has like kind of a different perspective on things than maybe the way I watch it. And I just always adore the way that he went about things and was watching it so consistently. So when he asked me to come in, I as a test, I was like, heck yeah, are you kidding? So and that show's evolved into something that's just completely off the freaking rails in the most delightful way. And um yeah, so it's been a really fun and kind of wild little journey. I feel very blessed in that I get to do most of my content at the place that I would want to do it. Like if I could pick anywhere in the world, it's the place I would do it, and it's as much, if not more, the people than the platform. You know, it's I always say like it's not wrestling's not so important to me that I would work with people who are bad people in an effort to like go and talk about it. Like it's just not that important. So working with really great people is the priority, and then getting to do it on a very successful media outlet is a really, really fun bonus.
Oh yeah, I mean, I must say that is one of the coolest stories. The
Oh,
journey
thank you.
that just went on. I do love the fact that you have like consistently been like in some way, shape, or form in this world. Well, like you said, the radio station you did at college, Sirius XM, just like all of this kind of stuff, wanting to do sports commentary, like that's so cool. So to see like little Kate trying to think about all this stuff to Kate now, you know damn well that little girl is so proud.
Oh, oh, that's so sweet. I really appreciate you saying that, because sometimes you're just like, every day I'm like setting up a broadcast at StreamYard, just going about my life or whatever. And then I do think about when I was, gosh, I must have been 13, 14 years old. I was writing letters to sports broadcasters that were successful. Like, hey, where did you go to college? Like, how did you get into this?
Awesome.
I wrote like every Yankee commentator I could think of, Bob Costas, Michael Kay, John Sterling, like everybody. And I got a response from Michael Kay, who was that was like my dream job at that point. And I had just written a like, hey, how did you do this? Maybe 3-sentence paragraph, and I'll never forget it. And I had it for the longest time, printed out in a hard copy. He responded with probably 4 different paragraphs of like, this is what I did, this is what I recommend, these are the things that are important, and like pulled back a lot to, I'll never forget it. It was like very influential on me. He like kind of pulled back a little bit to realize that I was 14 or 15 at the time. And I remember him writing, whatever you do, just do it with a passion. Like almost like giving yourself permission to change your mind of like, I was obviously very one-tracked mind, like this is what I wanted to do, but he knew I had a lot of life ahead of me, which I appreciate. But I've always taken that with me of like, just whatever you do, do it with a passion, like be invested in what you're doing. I really, really loved that. And it's stuck with me 2 decades. So I'll thank you to Michael Kay for that one.
There you go. Now, with the amount of episodes and post-show things you have done over your time, do you have any favorite episodes you have done? Any, whether it's just like anything podcast relating, like the watch-alongs you started doing, anything like that kind of stick out in your mind?
Oh my gosh, there are a lot of it's always the ones that never end up being about wrestling. It's so funny. Like there's I'll never forget there was one episode of the Mark Order before I got to Fightful where I had like really for some reason I got very into the tag team High Energy and became obsessed with Frankie the Macaw, Coco Beware's bird. And I found out that this bird died in a house fire and I like couldn't handle it emotionally. I was like, because macaws will outlive you. Like they're long living birds. And there was this like guest book online, and I found it, and I was like, I was very down the rabbit hole with Coco Beware's bird, Frankie the Macaw, and I was just so emotionally affected. I was like, I want to go visit this bird's gravesite. We were just like laughing our asses off about like why was I getting into High Energy and down this rabbit hole of Coco Beware's bird. Um,
That's amazing.
Every episode of Sour Graps is my favorite one. Like it's just so silly what we do over there. But I call it a variety hour now because we're doing like Alex being a very gifted voiceover actor. We somehow ended up having like this wheel of impressions thing that we do at the end of every show,
Okay.
and I can do one impression, and he does like eight, so
Hey,
it's
that's okay.
mostly him. But oh, it's great for me too because people send in like their chats and requests, and I'm like, I barely have to do any work. I got one impression, and that's it.
There we go.
But there was one episode where it's so funny the things that will come up organically. He accidentally called the wrestler Duke Hudson Duck Hudson, like just a verbal typo. And our chat like lit up with all these duck puns. And so like 150 duck puns later of like paid chats alone, we're like going through just laughing our asses off at like all the wrestling duck puns, and it's something that has now carried over into every episode. There's like a new theme of puns every single time. It's such a fun and silly thing, but um yeah, there's more like moments like that. Any of the Halloween episodes where we've gotten dressed up for stuff, um just incredibly silly stuff. And anytime you get messages that are a from wrestlers who appreciate certain things that we've done or said, or b um messages of like, hey, I was going through a really hard time and that show made me laugh a lot. Like I had a shitty day and I really needed some relief, and you guys let me mentally check out for a couple hours each week. Like those messages and moments and shows always end up being my favorite because wrestling's just not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, and human connectivity is something that's very important to me. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of more those pieces of it than a specific episode.
Well, again, see, you're just making my job so much easier because so like I always have like the same set of questions I ask everybody, and I always do them in like the same kind of order. So this one is your favorite unexpected moments that have happened in any of the shows you have done. I mean, you brought up duck puns and you brought up the wheel of impressions that came organically. Anything besides those two that kind of pop out, whether it was something that made you crack up, something that like scared you and like caught you off guard, the chats,
Sure.
anything like that.
Man, like it kind of all of it's is it all of the above in some ways. I think on the less fun side, some things that stand out are uh the anytime there's releases, it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks. And when WWE was doing kind of like mass layoffs during a pandemic, um, one thing that stood out to me was I remember I kind of just went on this rant about um, the just how difficult actually being a wrestler is. Of just like I think sometimes it's very easy to get lost in the fact that like they're putting their mental and physical and emotional well-being on the line. Everybody's walking around with like 5 injuries that they don't even consider injuries because these guys are just and gals are just always in
Yeah.
pain. Um, and I just kind of went on this rant about like what a mental game that must be to have this lifelong dream, get signed to your favorite company. Usually there's a lot of like, and this is how you work a camera, and this is your gimmick now, and like all these things that all this time and equity that you built up on the indies, and then it gets all switched around, and um, you're told you're not good enough, you're told you're good enough but not for the main roster yet, like all these things, and then just to get caught, you usually move your life down to Florida, like
Yeah.
all of these things. And I got a couple of messages from both wrestlers and viewers of the show that were just like, man, I like I really appreciate how much weight you assign to the plight of just being a wrestler, like just going out and doing this as a job because it is really, really, really difficult and um kind of one of the most under-resourced jobs in the world too, right? These people don't have insurance, like mental health resources aren't always easy to come by, so things like that. We went live right after the Briscoe news, which was really, really tough. Uh, the week after that, the Saudi Arabia unconfirmed rumor broke, but everybody thought it was real. So we were supposed to do an NXT review, and it ended up being like a 3.5 hour show of mostly Sean coming on and saying that it wasn't true or confirmed yet. So there's like all these things where um, I don't know if there's a such thing as a standard show, but like those moments for sure are things that stick out in your mind of the unexpected. And that's almost to me one of the most important reasons that you are prepared because stuff's going to happen that you're not prepared for. And if you're not ready across the board for everything else, you're just going to get rocked. So, yeah, it's crazy. The past year of wrestling was just so insane. Not so much in 2023, but 2022 of like, is MJF leaving a pay-per-view on a plane? And Sasha and Naomi walked out. Like
Yeah.
so much of that between like April and at what's dubbed now Brawl Out, like it just seemed like every other week. It was so insane. Sean says all the time, like Stone Cold fought in a match, and I don't even know if that was like a top 10 story of the year. You know what
Oh
I
my
mean?
god,
Like
yeah.
not so. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of chaos, which is why I try to be as prepared with the things that I can be as possible.
And you know, sometimes that's all you really can do. You brought up mental health, and that's always been like my big thing. Every show I do, whether it's this, I don't think I had it on the top 5 panel because I didn't have room on the screen. But like every weekly show, I have the crisis text line and the suicide hotline number, and it's always in the description of every video that I do. Just because I was a social work major in college. Before that, I was a psychology major.
That's so cool.
So like that's always been one of my biggest things, and the fact that people treat mental health like garbage 9 times out of 10, especially in wrestling, always pisses me off and lights a fire under my ass. So I started doing that once I broke away from the show I was doing before. I was like, this is going to be on everything I do because it's my show.
I love that, and I also feel very grateful that uh, Sean has never, nobody at Fightful has ever, because it's not just Sean's money at play. To be fair, too, nobody has ever told me to pipe down about a single thing that I've said. I don't. I try to be tasteful in the way that I say things, but like we're very much a place of we have moderators that are going to kick assholes out of the chat and don't put up with shit. And Fightful is for everyone, and wrestling should be for everyone. And things like that are just really important. I think the overall mentality at Fightful kind of is like decent human being first, for the love of God, wrestling second, because um, it's just there's never been a suplex that's cured cancer. You know, it's just not that big of a deal. It's a lot of fun. It can be really emotionally impactful in really great ways, uh, but it's always been. I feel like that's why our team is a really healthy environment. Is everybody's kind of on the same page of, uh, let's keep in mind the levity of what we're talking about first and foremost.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You don't need to get so embroiled in toxicity. It's
Yeah.
even on sour grapes where we're hypercritical, it's of creative, right? We're not attacking people, so
Yeah.
it's a very, very important distinction to all of us. I think is that of let's keep in mind that these guys and gals are putting everything on the line every time they step between the ropes.
Yeah, honestly. And uh, before I move on to the next thing, like you brought up the Jay Briscoe stuff. The show I used to do, I did a AEW Dynamite post show after Brody Lee died, and I had to host it, and I had 2 co-hosts with me who were there longer, and I couldn't make it 5 minutes without sobbing the entire episode.
It's kind of funny
awful.
you say that because That's the only show. That's the only time I've ever opted to not do a post show because I just knew I couldn't.
Yeah.
There's been times I missed shows because of circumstances or whatever,
Yeah.
but that was the only time I was only at the Mark order at that point, and there were different hosts, and two out of the three of us were like, I can't. So like I give you so much credit for being able to pull it together because I couldn't, and for being that vulnerable because I was a mess that whole 2 hours.
Yeah.
It kind of almost felt like the only wrestling show that ever mattered in some ways. Like, since I started watching in '09, like
Yeah.
I know the Eddie Guerrero one and stuff like that, but that one I was like, this is so much bigger than the thing that it's about. Like so much.
Oh yeah. And I said from that point on, I even told it, we'll call him my boss, I guess at the time for this. I was like, I'm never doing a show like this again, and you cannot make me. Like I was very firm about it. I was like, I think I can hold it together. The entire show, I'm crying my eyes out, like, on TV. It's great. But, and that's something I've always been, like, I tell my co-host Savannah all the time, I'm like, I've cried so many times on this show. Girl, if you gotta cry, cry. Like, I don't care. Mm-hmm. Like, it happens.
It's funny you said that, because not the show after Jay passed away, but the first ROH pay-per-view where it was Mark Briscoe and Samoa Joe, there was this spot where Mark Briscoe went to tag him in the corner, and that was one of the few times I'm like getting emotional about it now. Like I started crying on air because it just felt like it was so unexpected to me, and the sucker punch that it was when he like went to tag his brother who wasn't there, and you realize like that was one of the first times he was back in an ROH ring without him, and he had been doing that for his entire adult life before.
Yeah.
Like when he was a teenager, I think they weren't even legally allowed to be in ROH. Yeah, I think that was like a thing. So I'm with you, and that's what art's supposed to do to you. Like real life circumstances aside, the emotional piece of it is some of the most beautiful thing that like can come out of wrestling. I feel like when you it's just the best takeaway when the stories that are being told actually pull real emotions out of you. Like it's fake, it's scripted, we know, but the emotions can be very real when things are done in a great way.
100%. And we'll take a slightly happier turn now.
Sure. There are a lot of happy moments in wrestling too. There's a lot of laughter.
There's happiness, there's laughter, there's sadness, there's anger. It's all the emotions. It's like Inside Out.
We got Orange Cassidy carrying around his title in a backpack. Like there's a lot of fun to be had.
We have
too.
Samoa Joe as a killer clown in a TV show. Like,
it's perfect.
It's great. I think it's a killer. I actually don't know. I haven't watched the show yet. So, besides all of the 800 shows that you do, what other hobbies do you have? Like, besides anything wrestling related?
Oh, I have other hobbies, don't I? I
do
think
you?
I do. No, actually, this right behind me is funny. I'm a big baseball fan, big Yankee gal. I was 9 years old when kind of the Yankee dynasty years started. So I was super young to get on board at a time where like New York baseball was really taking off, and I fell in love with that so much. And also a huge music fan. The weirder and more expansive and boundaryless music, the better. Like I very into like some really offbeat stuff, some like Australian prog and neoclassical stuff. Like I kind of the same with wrestling, where I'm like seeking things out and that are maybe not on the middle of the radio dial in a sense. Yeah. Like I'm always seeking stuff out, but I always since I was little have loved music.
I'm a big music person too. I don't know if you can see if I can show it right.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
It's a rose, and it has a tiny little Phantom of the Opera mask inside of it.
I love that. It's beautifully done too. Oh my goodness.
My artist, it's some guy my friend went to. It's that shop. I'm eventually gonna have like a whole music sleeve. So like that's the biggest piece I think I have on me right now on my arm. So I will be going to him for the rest of that. So like music, I'm right there. I got you.
Hell yeah. Do you have any like Phantom, obviously? Any Are you like a genre person, or are you just like a listen to everything person?
I kind of like I listen to everything. I'm more like pop punk, emo type shit.
Okay.
Like Fall Out Boy's one of my favorite bands. I've seen them live a few
All Out Boy
times.
kids. There, look, I've been very outspoken about my thoughts on pop punk. I'm not the biggest fan, but I gotta say, Fall Out Boy is one of the most impressive live concerts I've ever seen. Like they are,
Oh yeah,
it's not like my thing, but they are incredible at what they do. Like if it's your thing, they're unbelievable at it. So,
oh yeah. It's like my music tastes all over. Like that's why people want to be like, oh, do you want aux? No, because my Spotify playlist is over 700 songs, and it's all the music I want to listen to, and it's always on shuffle. So no, I will not take aux, but thank you.
are you like I am, where it's like scary to put your like on repeat list on because you just don't know what you're gonna get? Like,
I'm
like I can go from like Ariana Grande to some weird like 12-minute technical guitar thing. Like I'm all over the place, and I don't listen like consistently genre wise. Are you the same way where you're like, oh gosh, what an eclectic little mix over here?
Oh, I'm as it's I was like today on my way home from work. Mac Miller played, Glee played this morning, a little bit of Phantom soundtrack. I was just at
Okay.
a Brett Michaels concert a few weeks ago,
Okay.
so like
I love that.
I'm all over the place.
I love that. I love the less constraints you put on yourself to enjoy something, the better. That's how I feel.
See, Kate, it's right here.
There's a Kate synergy. There
Oh
is.
yeah, oh yeah. Our names are too similar to not be this awesome
It's
with
so
each
true.
other. It's great.
But I gotta say, there's such a big difference between Katie's and Kate's. And I
Yeah.
feel like you're very much a Katie. And I feel like like if you guys know me, I'm like very much a Kate. Like Katie's are like so like gentle and sweet and kind and like warm and inviting. And Kate's are like we got a little bit of a stubborn little edge to us. We got a little bit of snark. We're a little rougher around the edges than a Katie. And I feel like that dynamic might be here.
Yeah, I definitely have my moments where I'm like that, and like I get. It depends on like the circumstances where I can get a little go a little aggressive if need be, but I try and be a little bubbly, happy Katie for the most part. Try.
You have a very
Keyword.
like inviting disposition. You
Thank
do.
you.
Like I feel like your neutral position
Thank
is
you.
very warm. I like it.
I try. I try. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this question is one of my favorites to ask because I always love hearing the answer. There's this one and one of the other ones are my top two that I always love asking. So if you, lovely Kate, could have a dinner with any three wrestlers, dead or alive, who are you picking and why?
Man, that is that is a really good question. I get three.
Three, yes.
Okay, definitely Bret Hart.
Okay.
Oh, because this could mean a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like, am I going for just my favorites, or am I going for interesting conversations?
People have done either or and a variation of both.
And like, are there some that just like witnessed events that I want to know about? You know what I mean?
Oh
Let's
yeah.
see. Like that's in my head too. Eddie Guerrero. So Brett, Eddie. I'm debating between. There's two gals that I'm debating between. I'll say China, because I would love to like know what was. She was like, I feel like the first of an archetype that caught the way she did, and
Mm-hmm.
she also saw some shit. Like that woman saw some shit
Oh,
during a very interesting time in wrestling. So I'll say,
oh yeah.
so I kind of like that. Eddie Guerrero, Brett, and and China.
That's a good group right there.
Yeah, right.
I will
But it's
say
so hard because I'm also like, I would love to have dinner with Minoru Suzuki. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of just
not
like
Suzuki.
there's some people that you're like, I want to get into that person's head real bad. So,
Oh, that'd be so funny.
right? That
Um,
man, like, we affectionately call him Murder Grandpa, but there's also like pictures of him on a Hello Kitty computer. You know what I mean? Like, I have so many questions for that man.
you know what? I'll join you. We'll sit him down. We'll talk to
Okay,
him. We'll have a translator just in case.
perfect. I'm in. I'm in.
And I love when people say Eddie. I think Eddie has now surpassed and might have already surpassed The Rock as like one of the most popular answers.
Really, I
Yeah.
love hearing that. I love hearing that because I think He's one of those rare ones where I think people realized how special he was in his time, which doesn't always happen. I feel like a lot of times you reflect on how special someone is after, but I think people knew like this guy's just one of the best.
Oh yeah.
And I just when I think of like the ultimate well-rounded American wrestler, like that's just my guy.
Loved Eddie. It was. I don't know. I can't remember like off the top of my head if I actually got to like see him live. I feel like part of me did, but then also my brain is nothing. So
Yeah, it's so hard. And I like one thing that's really fun about AEW is I started watching in '09, and so I never saw Sting and I never saw like Tony Schiavone in action. So like with AEW they bring back so many people that I get to see them, but then I'm like, did I also just like make something like did have I actually seen Sting live 3 times? Like as someone who got into this in 2009, like that's insane. Um it's just crazy when you think about things like that.
oh yeah,
Like they put Juventud Guerrero back on screen. You know what I mean? Like it's just a wild time.
the amount of people I have seen on a wrestling screen in the past 3 years, I I have no words.
It's nuts. They brought Muda out at a rampage and a Grand Slam. You know what I mean? Like it's
Like,
just nuts.
I just don't understand. And then like people you never thought you'd see wrestle again. Edge, as I deem him the All American Nightmare Dragon Jake Long Bryan Danielson. Like
What did we were calling him the Americanial Dragonson, I think for a little.
there you go. I love people's takes on the name. It's so fun.
Oh, it's perfect.
It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite things about the show. I do. I try and bring up Brian almost every show just so I can say the entire acronym.
It's beautiful.
It's fun.
John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, American Brian Danielson, Daniel Bryanson.
I think I added Nightmare because American Nightmare for Cody just for fun.
So easy to do.
Oh,
Just
easy.
slide it in there.
It was perfect. It was great. So you kind of touched on some advice a little bit that you've gotten from other people throughout your entire life at this point. Do you have any advice that you want to give, whether it's podcast related, personal related, anything related that you want to tell the people who are watching and listening?
Sure. So I'll say this. The best advice I ever got in podcasting specifically came from Jeremy Lambert. And he told me very, very early on, like, just do shit that pops yourself. And I was like, that sounds fun. And I didn't realize how, because it was just like a casual, silly thing he said. It's actually really important because there are so many people that are going to hate what you do, and there's so many people that are going to love what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you're in alignment with what you think is important and you're having fun, like you can only control what you can control. You cannot control other people's perception and reactions to things. There are people that hate watch my Tuesday show because it's sour grapes and we are very negative, and I find it very weird that people spend 2 hours on something that they hate in a post-show format, especially.
Yeah.
But there's people that do. But I don't change it because I like it and we have fun and we make some good points, I think, in the process, and we do puns and impressions. Like it's so important just to establish what your, it sounds kind of dramatic because it's wrestling podcasting, but like what are your values as a podcaster and what are you setting out to do, and then just go fucking do it. Because like I said, it's important to me that 90% of the time probably we're criticizing creative and not wrestlers, because I don't want to attack anybody. That's not in my ethos. Like now if there's a wrestler that it feels like I haven't seen improve, I'll call certain things out, or like, hey, that spot didn't look so great. I'm not trying to define people by botches, but like staying honest to my job. But like to maliciously attack people is something that feels off base, and to needlessly do so. Mm-hmm. So like staying in alignment with what you want to do and living to pop yourself, as Jeremy said, very, very important. From the just like wrestling viewing perspective and kind of like a more general life perspective, I would say just like don't leave anything on the table as far as what you're interested in and exploring it. Like I feel this way about wrestling, about music. Like one, it's for everyone, so like don't gatekeep, but stay curious and educate yourself. Like I'm a huge believer in that. And two, like if art is a form of storytelling, wrestling is indisputably an art form in that way. And I think it would be so silly if we all just watched one type of movie or listened to one type of music. And so to watch one type of wrestling feels like, oh, there's so much you're not exploring. So I always just encourage people to kind of what I said earlier, like the best of something isn't necessarily what's most accessible and happening right now. Like it's so rewarding as a fan to go and watch other matches because you'll appreciate what's on TV more now oftentimes, and you'll just discover stuff you didn't even know about, like promotions you didn't know about, and some of that might end up being your favorite stuff. Like that's happened to me so many times. So stay curious and be nice.
I mean, couldn't have said it better myself. That's perfect. Stay curious, be nice.
I should stitch that on a needlepoint somewhere.
I was gonna say get it tattooed on you, but
oh, I like that.
There you go.
Stay curious, be nice. Like stay curious over a line that says be nice. I can.
Hey, I mean,
I'm into it.
Spitballing ideas here.
That's it. I love it.
The second, this is the other question that I love hearing the answers. So, if you were writing an autobiography of your life,
Ooh.
Now it can just be your entire life, it can be a section of your life, it can be whatever you want it to be. What's the title and why?
Oh my gosh. Probably like this girl watches a lot of wrestling in the office. No, what's the title of my autobiography? Oh gosh. That's a really good question because it could be so many things. Right now, because everybody like it's just become a thing that like people have commented on my bangs a lot, I'll just call it like it's all about the bangs. Like a very Adam Cole kind of like play on it.
Hey.
And I'll write some cheesy inspirational thing about like, man, it's all about the bangs. You got to get out there and just bang-a-lang some life or something.
Well, that's a tattoo.
That is. Very close to Dalton Castle's finisher, the Bangarang, but it's just the Bang-a-lang.
Bang-a-lang. And you guys be like, no, guys, it's different. I swear, it's all different.
It's completely different by one letter. Yeah,
well, just one letter. It's all
but an important one.
No, I love that. All about the bangs. That's why I love this question. I love to see where people take it. Some people take it in, like the sillier route. Some people take it in, like the serious route. And like it's personalized to you. That's why I always say like you're writing it, like not some ghostwriter type shit. No, it's like you would be the one sitting down there typing it out. I've had people discuss the cover art that they want to have on the book.
Oh, cool.
Like people run with this question.
That far ahead.
It's okay. It's okay. And then that's speaking of thinking ahead, so this episode is gonna come out August 8th.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. I'm going on vacations.
Oh my gosh, where are you going? Can I ask?
Oh yeah, because I'll be like done with one of my trips already. I'm going to New Orleans for a friend's bachelorette party.
Ooh! Oh my gosh, fun.
I've never been down there. I'm very excited. And then I will be at SummerSlam.
Very cool.
So, flight to New Orleans, flight to Detroit, and then the next day I'm flying down to Savannah because I'm going to South Carolina to the beach for a week with my family.
Very nice. Very nice. Enjoy it.
That's
summertime
I'm going to. It's gonna be weird not doing this for 2 weeks, but I got stuff cooking like this.
Dude, I hear you. Like, it's weird to take a day off. Like, when I went on the Jericho cruise, it was, like, so disorienting. Not because I just didn't do this for 5 days, but because I didn't get, like, the Wi-Fi package. So I was just, like, all of those instincts of, like, I have to go set up a broadcast. I have to pull audio. I have to host. I gotta see who our sponsors are. Like, all the automated stuff that I've done, like, 700 times in the past 2 years was still there, and I was just like, I'm sure I looked like I was on some sort of drug withdrawal. I was like, just twitching out,
running around.
It's so weird. 2 weeks is good though, because the first few days you're gonna be like, this is weird, and then you're gonna be like, this rules though. Actually, I am relaxed now.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna enjoy it, take some time. But future plans for you, Miss Kate? Anything that's coming up in the next like few months you wanna get people's attention to?
Sure. Yeah. So, I'm actually gonna. Ooh, if I announce it, it becomes real. So this is like a little. This is a lot, but I've started writing kind of like essay style wrestling related content in a Substack newsletter. I'm gonna call the Paper Champion. So you can
Ooh.
check that out on Substack. I'm hoping it'll be ready for signups by the time this comes out. If not, it's coming soon. And it's not. I was talking to a friend about the format of it, and he was like, "Oh, cool features," and I was like, "Well, it's more just like my feelings about wrestling and wrestlers because I'm not doing a ton of research. It's just things that I consider like of value, and that's going to be something that I'm hoping to have delivered on a weekly basis." And then on top of that, I'm speaking at 2 podcast conferences, which I'm very excited about. The first one in August is Podcast Movement, which is a really comprehensive and kind of one of the more reputable ones. So extremely excited about that. That is the third Thursday in August that I'll get to be speaking there.
Okay.
And my session is called, I think it's called Value Beyond the Mic. And it kind of talks about everything but the on-air stuff, from production to monetization, all sorts of stuff that will be aimed at helping people with their own projects and grow their own brands, as well as I get a lot of questions about like, how do I get hired in this space? And I don't really know, to be honest. I got kind of handpicked, but I will do my best to guide you through things that I think will be of value. So whether you're independent, trying to grow yourself, or you're trying to grow yourself and get hired somewhere or whatever, that's kind of what the big one will be. And then I also have one September 9th that is here in Jersey. It's an independent podcast conference. So very much looking forward to kind of expanding beyond, hey, I did this post show, get the writing rust knocked off, and get to do some speaking engagements as well.
Listen, we love a all-rounded queen. That's you.
Well, thank you. I'm something. I'm a well-rounded something, or
No.
I'm at least putting out a lot of content. Whether or not you think it's good is up to you. But I'm putting some stuff together.
Hey, I mean, I love the fact that you're gonna start a Substack. That's fucking awesome.
Thank you.
I started one because of Haley. Precious,
the
precious
best.
Angel. Love her pieces.
She's gonna be at SummerSlam. Are you guys gonna be besties?
Yes, we already talked about it because I was like, she was messaging me. She was like, I'm gonna apply to be in the media. And I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna apply too. And she got it and I didn't, but I love her for that. And I didn't get it and I'm just a little sad, but I'm so happy for her because it's her first time.
That rules for her, and you're not
yeah.
far behind, I'm sure.
Well, Payback is in Pittsburgh, and if I'm not in the media room, Triple H is gonna have words.
That's good. Throw it down with him.
I might have to. 100.
It's all about the game and how you play it. And sometimes the way that you play the game is by busting into the media room anyway. So we'll see what happens.
I know my way around PPG paints. I'm just saying.
There you go. There you go.
But yes, Haley and I will be meeting up. I think she said we're gonna try and do like brunch or something before all the shenanigans of SummerSlam because we're both only gonna be there on Saturday.
Oh my gosh, she could make you brunch from her cookbook because she's just like a published author, boss, babe, queen.
It's unreal
so
how
cool.
talented she is. It's kind of it's
actually upsetting. It's like, yeah, as someone that's like probably, I think I'm like a decade older than her at this point. Like, it's just kind of rude that she's this good this young. Like, knock it off, Haley.
It's like,
get down a notch. You're making me look bad. Okay,
like, Haley, baby, come on, come on. I think she might be younger than me, and I just turned 27.
Oh, gross! You're both babies. Get out of here.
Hey, I mean, I get it. All my podcast circle, I am the youngest, so like I get it. It's.
Are you? I kind of love that about it. Actually, I feel like one thing that's really fun about podcasting. It's kind of true about, I guess, kind of all of wrestling, but like, it's fun to see people older than me, people younger than me, people around my age. Like, you get such a different perspective based on that because everybody had different entry points into wrestling. So that's a really fun piece of it, as much as I joke about you youngins.
I mean, my co-host is 22 and I call her a fetus, so she's only 5 years younger than me, but she is a fetus.
Amazing.
It's great.
Love it.
So, Miss Kate, I have been asking you questions. We have been conversating. Now I turn the tables. I always allow all of the people I interview to ask me anything you want to know. I am an open book. It can be podcast. It can be just life. It can be whatever the hell you want to ask me.
Okay. Well, number one, I always love, especially with gals, like what was the thing that got you into wrestling and kept you there?
So I've talked about it before, and like I keep saying I'm gonna find this picture. I have yet to find the picture. There's a picture of me in like my playpen thing as a very, very small child, and I'm wearing a Stone Cold t-shirt, binky in my mouth, TV's on. I think
What a
wrestling was on.
badass.
I know, it was great. But my brother is 5 years older than me, so he was already like invested in wrestling by the time I like kind of understood a little bit. So I want to say like my brother like really got me into wrestling. Now I
Okay.
watch it more. He kind of catches it sometimes. He'll ask me like he does like the DraftKings stuff. He's like, "What do I do?" And I'm like, "Fuck, these odds are ridiculous. I don't know." But I'm like, well, based off the storyline that's kind of going on right now, here's my input. So we definitely bond over that, and we did bond over that, especially when I was younger. So definitely my brother got me into it, but I kept myself in it.
Do you remember like what um stories and what like specifically on screen was grabbing you?
I want to say I have a vague memory. I'm not sure when my times like when stuff happened is awful. I believe I know Undertaker was involved because
Okay.
we love Undertaker.
Of course.
And I want to say it was like one of the first like buried alive matches.
Oh wow. Okay.
Because I looked at my brother, I was like, "What is going on? Like, is he okay?"
I love hearing about when it's like larger than life characters that grab people because I got into it as an adult. Like 8-year-old Kate didn't watch wrestling, so whenever I hear like stories like the buried alive match or just like huge personalities being the thing that like grabbed kids,
Mm-hmm.
it's such like a fun reset button. I feel like to remind you that like it just isn't that. Like this is what it's for. Like
Oh, yeah.
I'm not the biggest Luchasaurus fan, but like wrestling is largely for the kids.
He's
Like
an evil Barney. Like, I don't know what you want.
Little Barney, and not the TNT champion. Christian is, but you know, it's what we do.
Get
It's
this
what we
turtleneck
do.
man out of here. Like, what is going on?
Um, who and how did you get into podcasting? You said that you've had people that have kind of like inspired you along the way. I know Renee Paquette was a really big deal for me.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of other specific like podcasters. I don't want to put over anybody I work with, but Sean's pretty all right as like a person. But
A person.
I feel like he's all right. No, I honestly like he's the best. I feel very fortunate that he's in charge of the platform that I get to do what I do on for the most part. But I look at like there's a lot of other women, Denise Salcedo, Veda Scott right now. Like I was like, man, when I first started watching, like there was not this much of a presence at all, especially on kind of the media side.
Yeah.
Is there anybody, female or male? It doesn't have to be, but I was just like thinking in those terms, I guess, that you kind of like look to, and how did you get started on the mic?
So Renee was definitely a big one. She used to have like a show she would do on like the network. Rest in peace, WWE Network. Because fuck
Rest in peace,
Peacock.
Snack Talk.
Peacock is the goddamn worst. So she had a show and she would kind of just like sit down, kind of like this, except like in person with a bunch of different wrestlers. Lillian Garcia was also a big one. She like her
Oh, yeah.
chasing I think like chasing the glory. That might be the title. She was like doing like really like intense kind of interviews sometimes with people. So I was like listening to a bunch of those. But you know, the pandemic hit and all of us were just like, well, what do we do? So I was just, you know, on Twitter. I will not be calling it X because what? I was on Twitter and you know, I was bigger into AEW. Like now, I mean, I still watch both and I have always watched both, but when AEW first came out, I was like, Young Bucks, Elite, hoo hoo hoo. Now I'm just like, okay, they're there.
What was crazy because it came out like I always give a lot of credit to AEW for the fact that uh they started a successful wrestling program and probably the most stressful.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, they were barely a company when the world shut down. And
yeah.
you had to figure they hadn't figured themselves out as a company, never mind how to operate in a pandemic. Like that it's very impressive that they were able to kind of establish themselves as a company. But yeah, that was definitely a very odd little
It was a
time.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were like, well, I'm talking to myself anyway. I might as well do it into a microphone.
So I distinctly remember tweeting just into the ether. Like I didn't. I just specifically made like a wrestling Twitter that is now Katie Wrestling 13 because I was like I don't want to bother all my friends who don't watch wrestling and don't give a
Oh my
shit.
God.
So I created this, which is now this is basically like the only Twitter I use. My other one's just there for whatever.
Just floating there, right? I feel like we all have these
Oh
accounts
my
that
god,
are just hanging out
I
there.
flip back between the two because like some of my friends will like DM me stuff on the other one, so I'm like okay cool. But I just tweeted in the ether. I was like, "What's your girl got to do to get on a wrestling podcast?" Because I did see them like just popping up like flowers in a field, and I was like, what am I gonna do to get on here? I can't remember who it was now who reached out. Oops. Somebody responded to my tweet and they were like, DM me, and it was a dude, and I was like, messaging dudes on Twitter, not really my bag, but I did it anyways because I was like, men are creepy and scary, and I am
Guard
a
up.
female.
Yep. Female wrestling fan, yeah.
Exactly. See, you get it. And
I do.
he was like, well, I have a friend who's looking for like an AEW like host or whatever for a show, and I was like, okay, sure. Mind you, like I wasn't even thinking about like host. I was just like, oh cool, I get to be on a podcast. Well,
Yeah, of course.
joke's on me. I had a Zoom interview to just like for his name's Kyle. He's from the Smacked Raw podcast, which they're still going. It's him and RN. They're still doing good stuff over there. But he was like, so like, what do you want to get out of this? Da 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 da. We had like a whole conversation. I was on. So I think he added me to like the show and like the group chat on Twitter like Friday, and then the following Monday was my first show. It was a Monday Night Raw recap. This was back when they were doing Raw, NXT, Dynamite, and SmackDown recaps. And mind you, I thought I was just going to be on Dynamite, so I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? On this Raw recap. That's crazy. I'll always remember it was the same night that Dominic Mysterio debuted on Monday Night Raw. So it was in August, which is
My goodness.
coming up. 3 years coming up. Woohoo, August 10th.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Wild.
Yeah. So I was with Smack Raw for about a year. I did almost every recap. I tried to. I was very much like gung ho. I was like, I want my own show, and he was like, okay, and I was like, I want a female co-host, because at the time I was the only woman in that podcast, which is typical. And so I got my co-host Savannah, who I met through a Young Bucks fan Instagram group chat.
Love that. Stop. I love that.
Now
Well, fans. Like, I hate it when people act like. Whenever people are like, you're biased, I'm like, it's wrestling.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just funny because I'm not as like gung ho about the Young Bucks as I was back then. So I always just
Sure.
like make jokes about it because we met because we were doing like TikTok-ish challenges on Instagram and tagging the Bucks in it, and it was just weird and a time. Yeah. It was a whole thing. But we created ShElite Showcase as a show on Smacked Raw. I think we did 10 shows. But I was getting to the point where I felt like burnout was real. I was doing a lot more than what was, given to me. And I was like, you know what, Kyle? I'm gonna give it to August, and then I'm leaving. I did give him like a month or two notice, so I wasn't just like, haha, bye. No, I was a little more professional than that.
yeah, that's plenty. That's plenty of time, yeah.
And then took some time to figure out this. and the ShElite Showcase was born in September of 2021.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's a it's a really interesting kind of like dynamic, at least for me, and journey, because it's, well, God, that sounds so dramatic in some ways, but it is. I feel like if you're in any type of content creation, there's forever this feeling that you're not doing enough, and then there's forever this feeling that you're exhausted because it takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot to it's a lot of mental and emotional energy
Yes.
to go on to a stream a lot of the time. uh it's weirdly very vulnerable, so I feel like figure that like moment where you paused and said, what do I actually want to do, is really, really important, because it's very easy to default to things like,
Mm-hmm.
I am, again, very blessed, no complaints, to be doing what I'm doing 6 nights a week, sometimes 7 nights a week. But every time that I've expanded, I have forced myself to have that check-in point of, do you really want to do this, because you're already doing a lot. And
Yeah.
what was funny was, I for a really long time was like, not Thursdays. Thursdays are my one day off. It's going into weekends when there's pay-per-view weekends. I'm gonna need that time. It's the only breather in like my work week. And then ROH came back and announced that they were on Thursdays, and they have been consistently my favorite brand of all time. And people were requesting that I do it with Reg over there, because we both have talked about how much we love ROH and we're rooting for it so hard. And I was like, am I really gonna do this? Am I really gonna do 5 business days a week? And I did, and I'm glad I do. But it is so important to have that conversation with yourself of, proactively, do I actually want to be doing this,
Yeah.
or is it just an opportunity that came up and I'm going to um do it because it's there? Like,
Yeah.
it takes a lot. It takes a lot. So I'm glad you did that. It's kind of what's happening with like my writing stuff right now. I was like, well, I've hit the ceiling on shows. I've definitely hit the ceiling on how many shows I can do,
Yeah.
until they make more days in a week. So is there anything that's next? And what is it if that's the case? And kind of had that moment of trying to explore what that looks like. And there's some days where I'm like, I don't know if I want to do anything else. Like, I'm very happy doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So that temptation of like, what's next? I'm like, it might be nothing else really. And that, I'm happy. So that works, right?
Yeah.
I have 2 questions for you.
Of course.
And then um the I guess, what's your favorite thing about wrestling? Is always one I like to ask people.
Oh, shit.
It seems like such like a general question, but it's like actually really hard, because that can mean a million different things. So I always like asking people that.
Oh, yeah. I
You
want.
can, and you can give some honorable mentions too. Like, you don't
Uh,
have to.
um, uh, I want to say like the moments that happen in wrestling.
Okay.
Like they're prime example, like the tribal chief, the tribal court, like the Jey Uso saga, like certain storylines, but then also just like certain moments that kind of just like capture me. Like when Adam Cole, little baby Adam Cole over here, that's my guy. Like when he showed up in AEW and like there was no rumblings or when he returned from injury, I was over here crying like a little bitch because I was like, I'm so happy he's back and he's doing stuff. And like the same thing with, little baby Rhea over here. I just have a little collection now of people
They're
who watch
adorable.
over me.
They're little like wrestling guardian angels. I love it.
They are. Rhea's the newest addition. Adam's kind of been with me since the jump from podcasting. But like when Rhea won the Rumble and like seeing her build from the Mae Young Classic to now, and it's just little stuff like that, like that gets me super invested. And like people keep talking about, oh, what if at SummerSlam you hear, oh, Detroit, and like a Biggie comes out, I'm gonna start crying on sight.
I will RIP me if that happens. I will pass away. I would lose it. I would lose it. I'm not surprised you said that, because I feel like I was very interested to hear your answer, because I was like, a social worker and a psychology major with wrestling is like an interesting one, because there's so many pieces of what that can be, and like there's so much more awareness around social representation right now, and so many of those things. But like those moments that merge the human part of it with the story part of it, like That's a really cool answer because it's that's the part that feels the most real, right? Like when you see
Yeah.
someone's hard work pay off and these journeys that go on.
It's like that specifically, and then like the sub part of that is just like representation in general.
Hmm.
Like, I am bisexual, and I came out 2 years ago to the universe, which was scary. I've like outed myself on a
Of course.
podcast before. That was a thing. It was fine. It kind of got swept under the rug, but so like seeing like Sonya Deville and Nyla Rose and like these people who are part of the like Sunny Kiss, like these people who are a part of like these what is the word I'm trying to think of? These groups of people that aren't getting the media attention that they deserve, and it shouldn't matter what they are. Like,
Yeah, underrepresented for
yes,
sure. For
yes,
sure.
those
Yeah.
are the words I was getting to. Yes, better words. But seeing that kind of stuff, like I'll always say, like Sonya Deville was like the reason I accidentally outed myself on a podcast. So whoops.
Thanks, and also, oh man, uh, you know, I love, I love that there's so much A, awareness about it, and B, like when Bowens was on screen and was like, "Lady, I'm gay." When they did that whole Hardly Cameron
uh,
thing, I was like, and this whole arena was chanting, "He's gay," like in support of. I was like, it's not that long ago that that would have been a huge mockery.
yep.
Like it really isn't as long ago as it should be. I mean, it should never have happened, but like when you
Yes.
think about the amount of progress that's been made both societally and in wrestling, um, it is really, really cool to see people advocating for that because they're starting to realize how important it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's I think people are understanding the value of wrestling in general a little bit more, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, last question from me because this is technically your show, and you were like, "It's gonna be a half hour," and I'm like, "I'm keeping you for an hour."
Oh, it's fine.
What is one thing that you're proud of that most people wouldn't know about, just in general, or in podcasting, whatever?
Oh shit. Oh, I thought
That was a question I got asked once, and now I turned it around on everybody else because it's like one of the best questions I think you can ask.
that really just like hit me into my core for some reason. I was not expecting that. Holy shit. Um, one thing I'm proud of that most people might not know.
Yeah.
Ooh. Podcasting. I'll give you two answers. I'll give you a podcast and then just like a personal one. Podcasting. It's gotta just be like creating my own show. Like I know people like I've talked about it a lot, but I was mainly trying to just like get this inside the mind of this interview type series that I'm doing. This was like one of the things I really wanted to do. Like I said, I was a social work major. I was a psychology major. I like learning about people and what they do, and that's kind of why I'm starting with podcasters, because we're all vastly different and do different types of things. Like, I mean, the goal is eventually wrestlers, but we'll get there. It's fine.
You will get there. You will get there.
We'll get there
sooner than you think. I promise.
Payback. We're looking at you.
Yes. Yes. In Pittsburgh, baby.
I mean, I'm 20 minutes from the stadium, guys. 20 minutes.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm like 20 minutes from downtown.
I love that. Okay.
It's very convenient when WWE is a show. When AEW is a show, I gotta drive through the pits of downtown, and it's a goddamn disaster. But personal. Ooh. I mean, I could go like easy answer and be like, oh, graduating college, which took me 5 years because I did have to change my major. But it's like I don't know, like if a lot of people know this, like I'm a quarter blind now in my right eye. I've been wearing glasses since I was 5, second half of kindergarten. It's super fun.
Oh my gosh.
I also like learned how to say the like correct term for a lazy eye, which is amblyopia, at 5 years old. It's the same eye, so I never like I've always worn glasses. I've done like the scratched lens and like the clip-on lens to try and strengthen my eye, but I never used like the Office of Disabilities to get help in college. I never like tried to get any like other help besides what I had at my disposal, like computer, textbook, TV, whatever, my phone. I never like tried to utilize the resources that I could have. I just did it all my own.
That's awesome. That takes a lot of strength. You should be really proud of yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's really cool. I did not know that about you, and I think that's
Yeah.
like it's funny because you said you were in kindergarten, right? Like
Hmm.
it's amazing how many things as an adult are formed when you're that age.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm sure you're persevering and motivated and strong in so many other aspects of your life because that was like one of your initial experiences. So that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Thank you.
Good for you.
I
You're
will say,
welcome.
trying to play basketball with glasses is really fucking hard, guys.
I would imagine. I can't play basketball with contacts in, so I can't.
I did have contacts at one point. We did experiment with it. I only had to wear one though, and it was just in the one eye, so that was always weird.
Oh, interesting.
And then I thought I dropped it the one day. Lo and behold, it was in my eye for like a week, and I said, "No, I'm not playing this game anymore. I'm kind of done." So I've been glasses ever since.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
Little trauma said, "No, we're good. Thanks, guys."
Oh, I don't need to try that again. Yeah.
And anything else you just want to ask me?
Um, just like I guess how much is it going to cost to bail you out of jail if Triple H doesn't let you in the press room at Payback?
Ooh.
Just like we'll start a GoFundMe. That's why I asked.
You know what? I think we might have to. Maybe I'll start googling some like prices of like bonds in
Okay.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Let us know where to get them. We'll bail you out.
And yeah, I'll be tweeting my experience from.
Do you have anything coming up? I'll like throw the plug transition over to you. Is there anything, or are you just you're going on vacation and then rocking and rolling
Yes.
with this?
So I have this interview that'll come out August 8th. I have another interview that's coming out August 1st. So both of those are gonna go out while I'm gone. The panel that you were on, the top 5, which thank you again for doing that. That was awesome.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Even though your computer said no, we're done.
Oh my god. Better today. Knock on wood.
Oh yeah, hey, it's been perfect this whole time. So knocking on all of the wood here for you.
Kate's internet is a variable.
I do plan on doing. I have 2 more ideas for different panels. I do have some people lined up. One of which is gonna be, women wrestlers or just women who should be in the Hall of Fame and aren't. Victoria. Victoria.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Are you feeling okay? No.
Yeah. Sorry, I got a little something stuck in my throat. That's crazy.
Fucking Victoria. See, there I go.
Yeah,
I'm not subtle.
it's
That is the
Victoria.
difference between a Katie and a Kate. What just happened right there? You being all like gentle about it, me being like, put fucking Victoria in the Hall of Fame. There you go.
Oh yeah, me on other shows like we've been advocating it for years at this point. So that's one of them. And then I can't remember the other one that I have off the top of my head, but I like is, and I have to think. We call him my advocate. His name's Reek. he kind of like pushed me to step out of my, because I work with mainly dudes. Like all of my friends are guys. He was like, start working with more women. So that's when I tweeted and I was like, hey yo, women, hey, anybody want to help?
Where's the ladies?
Outpouring response, which was incredible.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
like Haley messaged me and I was like, oh my god, I'm so happy you messaged me because I didn't want to message you first.
Oh my gosh, shoot your shot with stuff. Honest to God, like
I need to more. That's definitely something I need to improve on. But like I have to seriously thank him for pushing me to do this and giving me the ideas. Like the top 5 thing was kind of his idea. It was like maybe it was like wrestling feuds, women's wrestling feuds.
ooh, okay.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like that's right because like I have a Substack too, and I started like before AW came out the game, Fight Forever Wrestling Soulmates. So I have 2 parts.
Oh, I love
3
that.
parts. I don't know how many parts I have
What a
up.
fun series. Oh, I love that idea.
I did a lot of Googling to figure out histories. Like Triple H, HBK, Sasha, Bailey. I have so many, and like I got them all. Like I was like, people, what do you want to see? And these were all ones people wanted to see. So
That's so cool. Oh, I love that idea.
So
I saw a sign when I went to Collision on Saturday that just said like fight for a reasonable amount of time, and that popped me huge.
Fight for whatever you think is healthy.
Like the time, whatever the time limit draw says is the most that you should be fighting.
Fight for
I
20
loved it.
minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Fight for your allotted TV segment. Let's go. Um, that's so cool. I love that. And I will say your panel, the format of that was so fun because it was very different. Like it was good and like challenging in a really good way of um like narrowing in on what everybody was bringing to the table, and then having to narrow it down again was like, oh, it was like painful, but like very fun and a productive
I
way.
really gave you guys like a hard task, and you all like delivered with it. So like, the top 5 y'all created was Chef's Kiss, of course,
Thank
of course.
It was a blast.
Well, I'm glad you had a blast, and we're still trying to get your point across in the DMs.
Oh my god. So if you didn't watch it, go back and watch it and support and leave a thumbs up and all. But my internet is atrocious, and then on top of that, my like Zoom app I think it just wasn't up to date, which I double checked before signing on to this one. I was like, "Are you up to date? Or are you gonna ruin my life again?" So it just quit, and I was like, "We were getting to such a good point, though," and I just was blowing up our little group DM the entire time. I was like, "Here are my inputs."
And Kylie graciously said them for you, so you had your points said. Don't
I
you
have an
worry.
advocate too, apparently. So
Hey, everyone needs a Kylie or a Reek. Everyone needs an advocate.
True.
That's
So true.
that's my advice to the people. Well, Kate, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. You have to, plug your socials, tell people where they can find you, and the thousands of shows that you do.
Good question. What do I do these days? I'm at Miss Kate Fabe on Twitter and TikTok, and Kate Stagrams on Instagram. So you can go there for any updates and pictures of my dog quite frequently. But yeah, on Mondays, I'm on Fightful Select. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, I'm on the Fightful main channel. The Mark Order podcast on Wednesdays, and then most Sundays, Joel Pearl and I do a show on Fightful Overbooked called Kate and Joel Call It in the Ring, which is it's really fun. It's just like a very high level overview of what happened in the week of wrestling. We always say that Fightful Overbooked is like our ESPN 8 the Ocho from Dodgeball. So it's a different playground than the main channel. So we have a lot of fun doing that. And yeah, keep an eye out for the Paper Champion. Hopefully it's launched by the time this comes out, because I just had a lot of feelings about Eddie Kingston being in the G1 that I had to write about. So hopefully it'll be out at that point.
Sometimes all it takes is one idea to spark it.
Oh my god, that was just like I love this guy so much.
He's
I gotta get
a fantastic human being. I'd love to meet him.
Yeah, he should have been on my 3 people I would hang out with.
Well, I mean, I did just
if
write
I did
Eddie.
another 3, him and Minoru Suzuki, and that's what it should be. I'll just do an all Eddie's panel. It'll be like hot stuff Eddie Gilbert, Eddie Kingston, and Eddie Guerrero.
There you go. She has alternates, y'all. She got alternates to this. It's wild. And of course, shameless little plug. You can follow me on Twitter at KateRaston13. The link to in my about to Things ShElite Showcase. Twitch.tv/ShElite Showcase. Typically Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern. YouTube.com/ShElite Showcase. Watch videos because they're way more entertaining. Because I'm Italian and I talk with my hands. And it's crazy. I'm all over the place. The facial expressions I make are wild. Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. If you want to listen. ShElite Showcase is the weekly show that we do inside the mind of that you're currently watching. Hi, hello, from past Kate and Katie. That's us. I'm very proud of this series. I'm proud of everything that I'm doing. I hope everybody appreciates this conversation, as you all should.
I appreciate you asking me, so I hope people appreciate listening to it.
There we go. Well, I guess... Kate and Katie will maybe see you guys down the road. Who knows? Perhaps another collab?
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, they'll just have to keep their eyes and ears peeled, won't they? Ah ha ha. Okay, bye everybody.